Hello everybody, my name is Jason, and of course I go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze, and I've been doing videos like a lot of you out there and or leaving comments on the Idaho 4 case. That's right, so this is for all you, especially Idaho 4 true crime junkies out there, and thank you so much sincerely for all of you, of course, that have subscribed to my channel. I'm a new channel, but we're skyrocketing already past 300 subscribers, my friends. It's unbelievable. One of my videos recently has got, I think, 2.4 thousand views or more. It's unbelievable, and hundreds of comments. Please keep it coming, everyone. And please, again, people new to my channel as well, welcome. Again, if you think I have possible value to share with humanity, or if you just enjoy my videos, please subscribe. Think about that. Smash that like button, okay? And hit the bell icon to be notified for future videos. Feel free to leave me a comment. I read them. All this apparently helps with the algorithms and ultimately getting the video out to you guys and gals. So with that being said, without further ado, I want to do a short but powerful video. This is why I'm wearing this tank top, because I am going to challenge none other than EMBREE. That's right. You know, this guy who's got this really big YouTube channel. I think he's got over 20,000 subs now. But I want to challenge this guy. And I've had a lot of questions, and I've asked the audience, could he be a disinformation agent? Could he be working for one of the agencies out there? Or is he the real deal? Is he an alpha male? Like some people say he's an alpha or alpha male. And, they treat him like he's like this superhero. They bash me. I mean, I can't believe it. But I've challenged this guy, and I got questions about EMBREE. Who is he? And why does he keep pushing out this narrative? And I think it's a ridiculous narrative by and large. He keeps trying to seemingly convince us, you the public, that an atrocity took place. Just believe the FBI, in other words, even though no verification of the body's being removed, by the way. We could get into that. I've talked about it in past videos. Very few other people get into this, my friends. So we'll do a whole list of the staged crime scene. Because again, EMBREE does not discuss, that I know of, anything about the staged crime scene other than, a coerced 911 call. But it doesn't get... So who is EMBREE? And why does he keep pushing out this narrative, as I said, that an atrocity happened? But then he takes it a step further. He keeps saying in hundreds of videos now, right, that he believes it's the Aryan family, members of the Aryan Knights, that did this atrocity. In other words, they stabbed all 4 students, got out clean, I guess, right? We're supposed to assume. And they left Dylan and Bethany Funk, Dylan Morris and Bethany Funk, the 2 surviving roommates. They left them alive, no less. Okay? And a delayed 911 call. So assailants somehow intimidated and communicated, I guess, the night of with Bethany Funk and Dylan Morrison, telling them, don't call 911 for 8 hours. That's part of EMBREE's story. That's what he thinks. They intimidated them. And so they didn't get them to not call 911. Oh, and well, he doesn't explain, I don't think, but they left them alive. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? After a quadruple unaliving, and you're going to leave 2 roommates that are alive in the house, just untouched? I think you would agree with me, my friends, when you use reason, logic, common sense, that makes no sense. It can't be what really went down that night. And as I've said before, EMBREE doesn't tell you or discuss at all that this was an extraction removal operation. He doesn't even bring it out as a possibility or theory, my friends. And yet when you connect the dots, you look at this case objectively, you look at real federal programs and what the feds will do at times, U.S. Marshals, FBI, etc. They literally do extraction removal operations at times, my friends. And as I've said before, legally, get ready to have your socks and hats blown off and your glasses, my friends. And I will explain this tank top in a moment. Again, I repeat, get ready to have your socks blown off or your hats. Or maybe even if, as I've said before, if EMBREE listens to this, maybe his glasses will be blown off. This guy wears shades in all his videos. Are you kidding me? Except one video, one woman said he showed his beautiful blue eyes. He showed his eyes. Oh, he's got some supporters out there, I'll tell you. You gotta give them credit. But anyway, no, so he What was I saying? Now I forget, everybody. Oh my God. Well, anyway, let me get back. Let's go to the tank top here, everyone. The reason I'm wearing this. Actually, you know what? I was going to let the dog in. No, the reason I'm wearing this tank top is my challenge to Jay Embry. I got a lot of questions for you. And I think more and more people are starting to ask the right questions about you, Jay Embry. Who are you? Where did you come from? Again, you came out seemingly from the ether, and you're all about truth and justice, you claim. And you want truth and justice for Brian Kohlberger. You see, that part I fully agree with Jay Embry, that Brian Kohlberger had nothing to do with the crime, right? Didn't do the crime. No duh. Anybody with half a brain should know that in the last 2 years, right? At least. But now we're in 2025, my friends, right? This so-called atrocity happened November 13th, 2022, and yet Jay Embry keeps pushing out the narrative over and over again. Seemingly there was an atrocity. He agrees with the atrocity done by the Aryan Knights, Aryan family. So I'm wearing this tank top to challenge you, Jay Embry, to a boxing match. Okay, I've seen you hit the punching bag. You seem to have pretty good form. You're a bigger guy than me. Although I haven't worked out in 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, because I blew out my disc, but we're healing. But you're a bigger guy, but that's okay, Jay Embry. But you know what? I'm faster. And I think my technique is even more superior than you. And I think we could have fun though, dude. I'll carry a few rounds, but I'll put the hurt on you, I think, dude. Although I never underestimate my opponents. We'll see what you can do in the ring with me, Jay Embry. And you know what? Very importantly to add, of course, we will raise money for charity. That will be the goal. And, of course, just as importantly, I challenge you, Jay Embry, to an interview. That's right. I want to interview you. Either I go on your show, your platform, or you come on mine. I'll set up StreamYard. I'll get some help to do this because I want to start interviewing people, my friends, not just Jay Embry. But you see, my friends, my prediction anyways, what I think, Jay Embry doesn't have the courage for me to interview him. He doesn't have the balls to do it. He could prove me wrong. I'm putting the challenge out right now. Okay? Because the reason why, obviously, is I want to bounce ideas off Jay Embry. I want him to see as well. Can you convince your audience out there that you've been saying in hundreds of your videos? Can you convince still all your subscribers that this atrocity took place? And even though, again, let me just quickly say, no verifiable removal of bodies, no pretrial evidence of bodies, no pretrial autopsy confirmation. See, these are the hard questions, my friends, that I would ask Jay Embry. Can you prove it otherwise? Right? Why don't we talk about Jay Embry and your audience when I tell you, guess what? You got to know this, Jay Embry, by now. There's been no raw crime scene footage still of the crime scene. No leaked crime scene photos. That's unheard of, basically, almost in high-profile cases, right, my friends? High-profile crime cases, especially nowadays, right? Because mainstream media has all the money, the resources, often the connections, and you'll get leaked crime scene photos. There's been nothing, my friends. None of that, because it didn't happen. Then I would talk with Jay Embry in our audience and say, well, Jay Embry, do you have any explanation as to why Dylan, Bethany, and anybody else on that 911 call that you've gone over the 911 call, why aren't they mentioning blood? Especially when they bring up Xana on the floor. Why isn't anybody mentioning all this blood everywhere? And hell, you'd think they might even bring up the smell if it really happened, this brutal, bloody unalivings. See, those are the hard questions, my friends, that Jay Embry would have to answer, finally, to his big audience out there and my audience. And I don't think he wants those questions to be asked, my friends. You gotta wonder, is that why Jay Embry goes solo? Because he doesn't have the courage? Or is he on an assignment? Is he working for somebody that may be telling him, Jay Embry, don't you get interviewed by other people who have opposite viewpoints, etc. Especially somebody like ESTEY'S crime maze. You see, the only interview that I'm aware of that Jay Embry has done, I said this in one of my videos exposing him, is he interviewed A.R. Hayes, right? A convict's thoughts. I think he did it twice. Or maybe just once officially. That's it, my friends. And A.R. Hayes just goes along too that the atrocity took place. Apparently he believes the FBI narrative, it seems. Although A.R. Hayes, convict's thoughts, I think he now thinks that Brian Kohlberger probably didn't do the crime. I don't think Brian Kohlberger had anything to do with it largely, my friends, but I do think Brian Kohlberger, though, was a Fed. He was working with the intelligence community most likely. He was on an assignment himself, I believe, agreeing with the feds to work as the perfect distraction. We're seeing it now, everyone, okay? And the other thing I would say to Jay Embree, perhaps in an interview, and some things I would let pass. I won't even ask certain hard questions to Jay Embree, you know, like his history that some of people talk about. I won't even bring that up right now. So, one of the hard questions I would say to Jay Embree too is, I already said the staged crime scene. Just the defense, he thinks that, well, we got to bring up the defense team are bringing up alternative perps. Yes, but what you don't say, Jay Embree, is if the extraction operation theory is correct, which I think it is, I would say to my audience in an interview with Jay Embree, I would say, Jay Embree, what if the defense attorneys, wouldn't they be aware of an extraction removal operation? And they're just not going to tell you. In my opinion, Ann Taylor and her defense team, everyone, they're just trying to keep their jobs. They're following the script largely. They're part of this huge cover-up and corrupt system in little small town Moscow, Idaho. And they're not going to tell you the truth, though, that those students are alive, most likely, protect under the WITSEC program. This is great news, though, everyone. But you're not going to hear that powerful truth of this case, of what really went down on November 13, 2022 in the early hours, my friends. You're not going to hear it from Ann Taylor and her defense team, unfortunately. And so they're used as the distraction as well, in my opinion, to push out this distraction, to try to bring up possible alternative perps. It's all nonsense. The other thing I would bring up in an interview with Jay Embree, my friends, as well as challenging him again to a boxing match, is, now what was I going to say, my friends? I'm super excited. I can't even remember some of the things I wanted to say sort of off the cuff in this video. What was it? It'll come to me, everyone. We could talk about the coroner, right? Kathleen Babbitt is her name, right? And because Jay Embree and we all should know that everyone that's aware of this case, that yes, the public coroner made a public statement in terms of supposedly, trying to prove the atrocity actually took place. But again, my friends, as a part of a very corrupt system overall, unfortunately, I would argue that Kathleen Babbitt is just a parcel of the corrupt system. She's got a script, basically. She's told to put out a public statement to try in a way to convince the public that, a quadruple unalivings happened. But even other YouTubers, to their credit, creators, my friends, I don't think Jay Embree's done this. They pick her apart, her videos. She looked really nervous, right? She's going on oddly about the bizarre behavior of Xander Canoodle fighting for her life, she tells you. Right? We're supposed to just believe her. And then she says, talks about, different wounds of Kaylee Gonzalez, compared to the others. Right? Just like Steve G is trying to convince you, in my opinion. He's basically working for the FBI, the feds, as sort of an actor to put out a script again, releasing a certain amount of information. And his job, his assignment, my friend, Steve G, is to try to convince, because he's following it, the feds, to convince you that his daughter was unalived. Even going so far as to say an assailant broke her nose. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then he's trying to tell you that he thinks they got the right guy in Brian Koberger. I mean, it's just nonsense. Unfortunately, you can't trust Steve G, in my opinion, my friends. Be very careful with this guy. He's very slick. And he looks like a Fed and he acts like a Fed, in my opinion. Speaking of which, my friends, when you really look at Jay Embree, doesn't he look like a Fed? Does he act like a Fed at times too? And I say that, and I say the second part because, I'll never forget in a recent videos, this guy, and maybe I'd ask him in an interview, why, Jay Embree, when you were talking about, you're repeating Steve G's, I believe, verbal diarrhea, another lie from him. He was going on about how his daughter's nose was, face was bashed in or something, broken nose, right? And Jay Embree, without skipping a beat, Jay Embree talks about what he thinks there was no real weapon other than, he says it was like, it was the butt of a gun. He described it wasn't he gave some scenario as some other weapon, that it wasn't that weapon. It was the butt of a gun being used. And when he said it, my friends, he said it with no emotion. No emotion at all. No empathy. No sadness. You're literally describing supposedly, if we believe you, what you're saying, that you actually believe all this went down, and yet you have no sympathy and anguish or emotions behind your voice, it was like a complete robot, in my opinion, everyone. See, that's what shows, I think, in my opinion, is we got to ask the hard questions, man. Who is this guy? Is he working for somebody? And I'm not sure if I would ask him those questions or not in our interview together, if he had, again, courage and the balls to do it with me. Or maybe I would even give him a pass. If he accepted the interview, I might not even ask that question. I might not even go there. I've already put it out in this video, everyone. I thought it was very, very strange. If Jay Embree's the real deal, if he's this alpha male fighting for truth and justice and he's all about truth, why wasn't there any, again, anguish or sadness when you're describing a brutal unaliving, part of the unaliving, what happened to Kaylee Gonzalez, what she went through? If you believe, again, all this nonsense, which I believe is nonsense. I don't think it happened, but anyway, so I wanted to put that out there. I want to put this challenge to Jay Embree for a boxing match to raise money for charity, and or at the very least, let's do an interview together, Jay Embree, and let's see if you can back up half of what you put out there. Again, especially, can you back up in an interview with me, Jay Embree, to our audiences? Can you really back up that an atrocity took place, that operation out front that night on November 13th with the dumpster guy, as I've talked about and you've talked about, and you show the timestamps? Can you back that up that was actually an assailant like you claim? Can you back up that the audio that we heard, if we're to believe the audio of a gun, a firearm, because it was unmistakable sound of a firearm, I agree with Jay Embree there, if the audio is to be believed. But can you back up that that's really an assailant? And obviously, my friends, he keeps saying it's the Aryan family, the Aryan Knights that did it. So can you back up that those are Aryan family, Aryan Knight members, and they went in and those students were still in the house and they did the atrocity, all these stabbings? Can you back that up? I don't think he can, my friends. He can't. He doesn't have any evidence for it. Okay? And the guy in the car out front the night of, too. You know, and the guy walking back and forth right out front of the house. Again, the night of. Those weren't assailants. I would tell him, wait a sec. And I'd tell the audience, I think those are feds. They're conducting the PSYOP, the staging, and an actual extraction operation removal. They actually removed those students prior to all those guys showing up front of the house. One or more went into the house already, extracted the students, or they were just about to. And it was all, and again, we know it was we all know it was a staged crime scene when you open your eyes, my friends, right? And we'll get into that. I would get into, again, one other thing, my friends. I would get into as part of the staged crime scene. Here's all the evidence. They didn't treat it largely like a biohazard. I would show Jay Embree and the audiences the boxes, as I've talked about in my videos, my friends. Bertie showed you as well. He was the first one to show you in his researchers. It says North American Relocation Services on the box. It has one of the surviving roommate's name, Bethany. Isn't that odd, my friends? You got local uniformed PD and ununiformed officers moving the victims' boxes out, stuff, belongings. When do you see that? That's almost unheard of, right? You'd think there'd be a liability issue. Usually it's the family's members, right, that clean out the crime scene and stuff, right, and hire a cleaning company. None of that took place, my friends. It was all feds from day one. Because I think it shows you, again, there was no crime scene. It's all staged, everyone. And as I said in my videos, and I would bring it up in the interview with Jay Embree, my friends, but he won't want me to bring this up, that Bertie found out that North American Relocation Services, it isn't just a moving company, everyone. The parent company actually works with the feds. North American Relocation Services works with the feds. Their parent company is called SIRVA, S-I-R-V-A. Look it up, everyone. They got a Schedule 48 where they will remove valuable law enforcement assets, meaning like confidential informants, right? They'll remove and protect federal government witnesses, government officials, etc., my friends. That can't be just a coincidence. I don't think, everyone. Doesn't that show you that most likely this was an extraction removal operation? Hello? Bertie thought this was huge too, my friends. There's no doubt about it. But Jay Embree, I don't think he wants you to know that, my friends. He certainly doesn't want to talk about it in an interview with somebody, again, who's trying to connect the dots of what really went down. And it wasn't an atrocity, in my opinion. There was no atrocity that took place, and it certainly wasn't done by gangbangers stabbing 4 healthy people. No. There wasn't any crime scene to speak of, my friends, because it didn't happen. The feds did their job. Again, my opinions, but I think the facts back it up. Anyway, I've said enough. I've put the challenge out to Jay EMBREE. I've done videos exposing Jay EMBREE. I've done an apology video to Jay EMBREE, by the way, because, you see, I was trying to show, speaking, people who think Jay EMBREE still, they think for some reason he's got good character and he's a man of integrity, etc. Really? You think that? Okay. Really? Well, when I did the apology video, I showed intellectual integrity and honesty, I think, because I apologized when I realized that on the first video exposing Jay EMBREE, I got one thing wrong. I thought, I was almost convinced that Jay EMBREE did not talk about the WITSEC program at all, right? The Witness Federal Protection Program, in other words, in the United States. But he did do a video on it, okay? Although it was 7 months prior and he had just done a video replying to my video and showed you the WITSEC video. And that goes over the basics of the WITSEC program. But ironically, by the way, my friends, I may have said in the apology video or maybe not, but it's funny when Jay EMBREE was going through those FBI papers and the presentation of this WITSEC program and had, using AI tools, he had an AI voice on there. It was very interesting and somewhat educational, I think, but it didn't tell you that the FBI, the feds, legally, my friends, get ready to have your socks and or your hats or your glasses blown off. Legally, the feds, one more time, can stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. You never heard that from Jay EMBREE, though, have you, my friends? And I think that applies, again, to the IDAHO4 case, in my opinion. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you for being here, sharing your times. You look amazing. You look beautiful, by the way. And again, my name's Jason. I go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze, and I can only hope that you might want to subscribe. Even if for some reason you still support Jay EMBREE, that's all fine and dandy. He does some good work. But again, is he, though, possibly a disinformation agent? And even if you support him, I hope you might subscribe to my channel, especially other people. And I hope you'll hit that bell icon to be notified for future videos. Smash that like button. Speaking of smashing again, I challenge Jay EMBREE to a boxing match. And by the way, if you leave a comment, everyone, I do appreciate it. I do read your engagement if you choose to leave a comment. And again, all this helps with the algorithms and getting the videos out to you guys and gals ultimately, okay? And feel free to share this video. Thanks, everyone. Gotta go. Have an amazing, beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Bye.